So, welcome out there to my program once again. This is the panel show, and I have a full panel. This is going to be an explosive panel. I mean, this is the day after the recall election. As all of you out there must know by now,
Is that what we're talking about?
Mayor Flanagan has been recalled, and actually he lost the election because he was on a ballot as an incumbent, believe that or not, after he was recalled. But he lost to Sam Sutter, who was the mayor-elect of the city of Fall River, and it seems that in about 10 days or so, Sam Sutter will be sworn in. There'll be this period of, I imagine, if someone wants a recount or some sort of appeal, which is probably most likely very doubtful. It seemed to be a clear victory. It was not a tight race. The mayor was resoundingly recalled, and that in itself is astounding. But the other part, of course, is that the city of Fall River, this was a historic election. And even though the ballot, a lot of people said the ballot was skewed in favor of the mayor because he had an opportunity, or he was going to be, or he was placed at the top of the ballot in the so-called second part, and having no primary and then the general election put this election basically in his favor, as a lot of people felt. So we're going to be talking about that, and I'm going to welcome my panelists, C.J. Ferry.
We're actually going to talk about this, huh?
Man about town.
I have to correct you, though. I have to correct you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the mayor wasn't recalled. He was fired. We fired him. We gave him the pink slip.
Okay.
He rode out on my boot.
Bob, how you doing? Haven't seen you in a few shows.
Yeah,
but,
well, but it's great to be back, and of
good?
course, I feel, I'm going to Disney World. No, that's how happy we are. But no, it was a great day for Fall River.
It sure
was a great day
Dan,
for Fall River.
Dan, back on.
Richard, how you doing?
Good.
Real historic day for Fall River.
Let's open it up, Bob.
You're kind of subdued, aren't you?
People, you were one of the so-called recallers, CJ. Dan, this time you stayed on the sidelines, but you had your input in different ways. You people were condemned for everything under the sun, except the media is coming from heaven, from out of the sky.
Yeah, I think we sank the Lusitania.
Yes, we did. That's right.
The Titanic and a few other things.
We're to blame for the windows.
You accused of, you call thugs, Nazis, anti-Semites. That was a good one.
That was
good, yeah.
And the business community was croaking. No one was going to come to town, and well, lo and behold,
nobody's coming to town.
after the election, it looks like Amazon doesn't want to come in.
Gee, you mean we didn't learn from history? The fact is that the mayor's, it boggles my mind how people could believe that. The other 3 times the mayor used the casino. He dangled the casino as to get himself out of trouble, and this time he dangled Amazon. But the fact is, listen, this was one of the most vicious trouncings I've ever seen, even with everything skewed in his favor. 70-30. I mean, that is unbelievable. And you talked about a recount. The fact is, I think we did more for the image of Fall River throughout this state, throughout this country with this election than anybody, any mayor, any politician could ever do, because we've been looked upon as people who basically just are clueless. And we showed them what government's about. We showed them that government's about the people. And we showed them that the people of Fall River, contrary to their beliefs north of us, that we can get together and boot somebody out of office. And I think Fall River now is really the prototype for democracy.
Well, let's carry that on a bit further. Does it show that the people in Fall River are not split?
I think they're kind of split on a candidate, but I think what's important.
Well, in a sense, in reference to the mayor and his job.
Well, you talked about a recall, Rich, and the reality is that was such a severe trouncing. I don't care if he got beat by 1 vote; he shouldn't ask for a recount, because the reality is, They split the rest of that vote between 7 other candidates. When somebody gets beat, when 7 out of 10 people say they don't want him as the mayor, I wouldn't show my face in the city, let alone in the government center. I wouldn't ask for a recount. I think the citizens of Fall River made one thing clear. They didn't want Will Flanagan. And they were split on some other people, but it was pretty apparent that Sutter got the most. But the fact is, they did something that's important, because people always talk about who we vote in. I think it's far more important who we vote out. And we've proven that the way this works is, if we elect you and you don't do your job,
You could be going.
you're gone.
CJ,
There is absolutely no question.
Is this you might say, a precedent, and that people who are elected into office in Fall River should take heed of what just happened?
I think every politician who is elected to office should take heed. In Fall River especially, this was a 70-30 split. And it was 4,900 people and change who said they were against the recall. Yet the mayor only received 4,600 and change in votes. So there were 300 people who said, no, I'm against the recall, but I don't want the mayor either. So this tells you something. And, you know, we did our show earlier today, as we do every Wednesday and Friday. And we've already hit like over thousands of people who have commented. And they've all said the same thing. You've started at the top. Now clean the rest of the house. And the city council has already been acting as though we got to start listening to the people. And every politician in Fall River, everyone, whether you are the school committee, the city council, the mayor, the state rep, the state senator, you need to understand, you work for us. You don't work for you, and you don't work for your lackeys. And if you cannot do the job you were elected to do, we will still be here, and you won't have a job.
Dan?
Well, you know, this was a historic day. The people spoke. This was a movement that took the city by storm. And now it started with the mayor. Now the next 2 city councilors that should be defeated at the ballot box immediately are Pat Casey and Paul Da Silva.
Now, do you think that...
Because if there's ever been a rubber stamp, and somehow if she survives this election, she'll be there till she chooses to retire or passes away. And I guarantee you right now, people of Fall River, that if Pat Casey serves another term, she will do everything that Sam Sutter wants and support every policy as she's done throughout the duration of her career. It cannot stand. She must be defeated for the best interests of Fall River, as should Paul Da Silva.
Now, here we are. This is the month of December, and traditionally, come January, the city council gets together, so to speak, and decides who the president will be of the council. Now, that'll take place, and do you have any opinion on who might reign as the council president?
That is a very, very good question, Richard. I think we can speculate. We can speculate because there will be a lot of political machinations on that, because the dynamics of the city council have changed. Even people like Pat Casey, who were, whatever the mayor said, there's a new mayor coming in town, and as Dan said, Pat Casey historically has said, anything you want, Mr. Mayor, I'll do. So if the mayor has someone who's more friendly to him, and Pat Casey thinks she can curry favor by doing that, I'm sure that we could see a different council president.
We have 14 years of history, roughly, with Pat Casey. I've seen her take 1 vote that was opposed to any administration, and it was a minor vote during the Carrera administration.
Yeah.
So,
Now, and also, if there was a change with the president of the council, CJ, would that mean the committee heads would change? Committee chairman?
Absolutely.
All committee assignments are at the discretion of the president and have the ability to change every year.
So that it could be a major
It will be if there's a new president.
new array.
We can only hope for a new president.
Oh,
I mean, I'll be honest, we can only hope for a new president, because
Joe Camara is now the president.
in the past year, in my personal opinion, Joe Camara has done nothing to build up the appearance of the council, the ability of the council, the cooperation of the council is always divided amongst themselves, and until this recall actually became reality, Joe Camara was basically hostile towards anyone who was involved in the recall, whether you signed the petition or not.
The bottom line is, Joe Camara's effectiveness, I believe, is a separate topic. I think the council was mostly divided among pro and anti forces in the administration. We can debate all day long about Joe Camara's effectiveness as a president, but I think that's a separate topic.
But they're not a separate topic, Danny, because if he's going to be an effective president of the council, he has to be able to bring the two sides together. Politics is about concession. It is not about sticking to one side.
Well,
and if you're going to do that, it doesn't work.
Let me ask you this. Now, we have the mayor-elect, and it won't be long before he's...
You're a great referee and trainer.
It won't be long before he's actually the mayor of the city of Fall River, and if word were to, you might say, seep out, that he feels a certain person should be the president of the council, do you think there will be councilors who might want to get on the best side of the mayor as soon as possible?
There are factions with every mayor and every council.
I mean, that's an absolute, Richard. You know, the fact is that, look, the last presidency had a swing vote, and Pat Casey was an automatic vote.
Right.
Now, I think that dynamic has changed, and to get into the middle of this little tete-a-tete we had between Danny and, I believe that I have to side with Danny. Politics is separate from the ability to run a meeting. And, I like lively debate. I don't care if councilors disagree.
I'm surprised.
Well, yeah, I know you are. It's kind of right. But, no, but I mean, that's the way things move forward. You're a student of history. You know that Hegel had the theory of dialectics, where the only way a society moves forward is to have, you have a thesis, which is the current thing. You have an antithesis, right? An antithesis, where you have an opposing opinion, and somewhere in this lively debate you get a synthesis, and that's how people move forward. Everybody can't, there's no creativity if you have just one opinion. But the fact is that that's not the issue. I think the issue a lot of people are having with Joe Camara is his inability to control the meeting, and that's what a president has to do.
Now,
he has
when you
to
talk about control of meetings, you mean the regular meeting plus
everything. I mean, parliamentary
Half the
procedure-wise.
council doesn't even know the rules of order.
They don't even know the rules of order. They don't know. They didn't know what happened. There was a motion to reconsider, and all of us have been at one time chairman and run meetings. They didn't even know, even the city clerk had to go look it up. They didn't know what the rules on a motion to reconsider are. He's allowed some of these meetings to go completely off they were completely out of control. They had an arrest at one of the meetings. And they've had, some of it was like a three-ring circus. And, the reality is that a chairman or a president, his primary function is to control the meeting and allow everybody, regardless of whether it's a minority opinion or a majority opinion, everybody gets their voice, and you keep it away from becoming, a state of chaos, which has happened at I don't know how many meetings lately. A meeting without chaos is like a day without sunshine in the city council.
Now, as the so-called recall election was underway, there was discussion about Amazon coming to town. And that, for some people, was billed as almost, there they are, just they got to go around one more corner.
But anybody that read the TIF, as we explained on several shows here and on Spindle City Straight Talk, it was discussed at length. There were no guarantees of jobs for Fall River residents. There was never a guarantee that they were coming into Fall River. So the whole thing was a colossal illusion built around an election.
Can you say Foxwoods?
And it didn't work. We've seen it with a casino. I remember on Channel 12 when Governor Patrick told Mayor Flanagan to relax. I'll never forget that. It was about 3 or 4 years ago.
So, in other words, all the hype about Amazon during the election was just what it was. It was a lot of puffing and
The day
chest
after,
pounding, and in other words, a political ploy.
right?
It
The
was.
day after Mayor Flanagan, I don't even like using that term. The day after William Flanagan and Ken Fiola announced that Amazon was coming to Fall River, because they never said at that time that this was a maybe. They're coming to Fall River. I met
Well,
with
you had the contract.
and I met with Senator Rodericks right out here, who was livid. He was livid because this was not supposed to be announced until the deal was done. Okay, when you enter into an agreement, you're a lawyer. I think you're a lawyer. You're a lawyer. When you enter into a contract, an agreement
Where are the scissors?
to keep the deal confidential, okay, and you have done this, you're not supposed to violate your contract.
Is that unethical?
Unethical, yeah, definitely.
Only if they ask if your opinion on a radio, then
That's right.
Ken Fiola can say, I'm bound by a confidentiality agreement,
Right.
so I don't want to make any
And the
comment,
worst part
especially...
Well, let's get to we get that Amazon business, and we're moving along quite quickly. Now, some people over the years have said that the Office of Economic Development does not produce anything, does not do anything.
Or destruction.
Destruction, as we like to call it.
And people will pile on, of course, and say, here's another example, Amazon. The office touted, the 1,000 jobs on land that was specifically set aside for bio-type companies. 100 acres was going to be cut away. The thing is that now that doesn't look so good, how did this all come about, if you know, in regards to this land, which was set aside not for a casino, not for a gigantic warehouse, but some high-grade type companies? What seems to be the problem with the Office, maybe of Economic Development?
Disaster? Well, the problem is that the Office of Economic Disaster is also a political agency. And what they do is they engage in politics.
Yep.
They knew full well that the casino wasn't coming. They knew full well that this Amazon, but they give you the dog and pony show because there was an election. I mean, how many times, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. How many times did the mayor pull the casino out? 3 times? 3 times he was in trouble, 3 times the casino, and that was the panacea. I'm curing all the problems in Fall River with the casino. And now he couldn't run the casino up the pole, so they came up with Amazon. And as CJ said, they were told not to release this. They released it with full well, and I think that is an egregious violation of the public trust, because to hold that false hope out to the people of Fall River just to try to get elected, and during those debates, more than once he talked about him bringing Amazon in his economic development, and look what I'm doing, and he knew that wasn't a given.
What's even moreover, the city council passed unanimously a TIF where there wasn't a single question asked. Probably the shortest meeting in city council history of about 2 minutes and 11 seconds was conducted. That's the even more egregious part of this whole deal.
All nine of them were complicit in the fraud that was given to the people of Fall River.
The question has to be, was the council aware?
There's no excuse. Okay, that's their job. They're to ask questions.
I'm not saying it was an excuse.
I know, but that's their job.
Did they know?
Doesn't matter whether they knew or not. They didn't
It's
ask.
their job to seek the truth.
That's
for
right.
The people of
And
Fall
they didn't
River.
ask for it.
Ask the questions.
Ask the questions. 2 minutes and 11 seconds is a travesty.
They're somewhat of an investigative body.
Yeah.
But now,
And that's a rhetorical question that I'd like to pose to each one of them. Did you know?
And you know what their answer is going to be? That was about jobs. They have this thing like, I can't be perceived as being against jobs. And if I ask a question, that's bull. Because the fact is, as you said, they're a legislative body, they're an investigative body. It's there to ask questions. Now, you're not against jobs if you say, is this a done deal? Can we look at this? Are we sure this is coming? I think that's in the best interest of the public they represent. As I said, that was egregious to hold this hope out to people, where people are going, oh, we're going to get, 1,000 jobs, and maybe I'll get a shot, and then to know full well that this wasn't even close to being finalized.
This is why, with a new administration coming in within 2 weeks, one of the first moves I hope he makes is to get rid of Ken Fiola.
All right, I was going to bring that, that question up in regards to, well, you have this board, right? The way I understand it, you have a development board, redevelopment board, a development board. It's a board, as far as I'm concerned.
Lack of development board.
Like the planning board, like the Board of Appeals, it's a board. People are appointed to that board. But this board has this curious function or ability to contract with a group that provides it with services, and that's the Office of Economic Development, which is not part of the city directly. Seems to be some sort of a quasi-agency. They have various terms they use in regards to refer to it. So if the new mayor says, well, I'm really tired of this board, Office of Economic Development, and I want to curtail their services. Now, I understand they have a contract with the development board, but what could a new mayor do to relieve the city, or some of the perceived inadequacies of the Office of Economic Development?
Pull the funding right out of the budget.
Yep. Turn their budget. Shut off their money.
Well, they have a contract. They have a contract.
No. That contract is not with the city of Fall River.
I understand.
Right.
No.
The way they're funded. No, I know, but they're funded by $384,000 from the Community Development Block Grant. Okay, and I was told by Michael Dion that the reason why they have to keep that money in place is there's 2 people working in that office that without that money will not have a job. We're not an employment agency. The city council removed that money from the budget. The mayor, by executive order, put it back in. Without that money, they don't get paid. The RDA is on the hook for the contract, not the city of Fall River.
But they do have a contract.
With RDA.
Yeah, and so, in other words, you can't just breach the contract because there will be consequences.
We're not breaching it. We're paying RDA for services that they provide us, which are not contracted. The contracted services are with the RDA and FROED. Therefore, we're not responsible for the bills incurred by the RDA. That's where it gets. I know. I've been looking at this for ages.
I mean, his and I don't want to belabor the topic, but if you have a board that's part of the city, like
it is not part of the board. The RDA is not part of the board.
No,
it's part of the city.
Redevelopment Authority.
The RDA is not part of the city.
Well, there's a board that's
right, and
members are appointed to this board. Let's give it a name. What do you want to call it?
It's called the Redevelopment Authority.
Okay,
they were empowered by the state and gave them blanket authority for the city of Fall River. They intended to reach that authority by going into Somerset, Swansea, Westport, and areas surrounding it. Oh, I've looked into this very clearly. Because remember, I'm the troublemaker.
All right, I'm not going to...
I'm not arguing contracts with the lawyer.
Right, I don't argue contracts either. The contract, though, that exists between the Jobs for Fall River, and that's the company that was contracted, and the RDA. The members of the RDA are business members of the community.
They're appointed,
put in place not only by the mayor, but by the Chamber of Commerce and by other authorities, including the governor.
Who has an appointment beside the mayor on that board?
The Chamber of Commerce and the governor.
You mean Rob Mellion makes an appointment?
Rob Mellion serves on the RDA.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Well,
no, he does not.
All right.
I see him there all the time.
I'm glad we got that issue cleared up.
No, he knows who's there, so I don't argue that with him.
So let's be brief and simple. Do you think the mayor can just pull up the anchor and say, you guys...
Well, I don't know if you can just pull it up, but I think what they should do is look at the contract, examine it.
Exactly.
And,
A thorough review.
and eliminate every single thing they can right out of the gate, and then look at how, once that
Are you
contract...
talking about transparency now?
Well, yeah, that was...
You're swearing.
That was an expletive for this administration. You had to delete that. But no, I think they should, any funding that we're not required to give, we should pull. And then we should look at the contract and say, when it reaches the end of this contract, it will not be renewed, and make it very clear.
Did the mayor-elect recently say that he wants to form an economic council?
I believe he said something to that effect.
That
Yeah.
he wants to bring people in that he can meet and talk to about the economy, the city economy. Is he moving, in a sense, away from the Office of Economic Development
We can only hope.
Well, yeah.
and forming something that he can rely on most assuredly?
Well, we're hoping he, you know, I heard him today on the radio saying that when they asked him about Kathy Anniversa, I thought it was very interesting. He said he knew her, and her husband worked for him, and he's known her husband for 25 years, and he would give her a, you know, he would give her a review. So he would talk to her on the transition, a transitional interview. But he also made a very interesting caveat to that statement. He said that I want the best city administrator that I can get, and that may not be her. So it left the door open, which, you know, he did overhaul the DA's office, and from what I've heard, he did a pretty good job.
Yep.
So let's just hope he brings that same kind of spirit to the Fall River mayor's office, and maybe we can get this ship
Well,
righted.
in regards to her position and maybe other positions, if her contract has been based on a coterminous clause with that of the mayor's, this mayor is going to be out of, he's going to be gone once the new mayor is sworn in.
Mm-hmm.
He will not be the mayor of the city of Fall River. Does that mean if Kathy Ann or anyone else's contract is coterminous, you serve as long as the mayor serves? That's as long as your contract is. If the mayor's gone, then you have to go.
You're the lawyer. I'm going to ask you that because if it went coterminous, it means they have one more year.
That's
Because
what
his term ends a year from now.
Well,
He was
had that-
That's what I
recalled.
tried to
We
say
had that
earlier.
discussion, but his term is ended.
No, it isn't.
Yesterday. He was fired.
If you could make that loophole work, I'd like to see half the city hall go.
Well, I mean,
I believe
he was
you're right,
fired
Chip.
yesterday, you told me.
I believe it would go for the mayoral term, which would mean that anybody that was coterminous would technically serve to the end of 2015.
All right, there's a question for you out there.
Well, I've
so-
got an
We
answer
want you
for
to
you, too.
answer. You're the lawyer.
No, I
You
don't
answer.
have
And I've got an answer for you. The RDA was formed in 1978 by concerned citizens and women established a private and nonprofit Office of Economic Development. So that tells you where the RDA is. They serve the city.
Okay, we're down to the end. It was a great show, very fast, and you heard it right from the experts. These people know what they're talking about. They're out there in the city. They discuss these issues every single day. And if you can stump the experts, you got to be a genius. So anyway, any predictions?
Well, let me predict one thing, that the 16,000 people who showed up to vote, 33%, they have my commendation, and I will predict that if they stay involved, we will see a different Fall River.
And we need to.
Dan, CJ?
I think we need to see a new Fall River. And I think
Okay,
all
out there,
of them should
thank
know.
you for
New
watching the
changes coming
program.
on the council, hopefully.